Hey, this is take 9 for my obligatory content creator reviews patch notes video. I just wanted to make it still because I had some interesting things that I needed to, or that I thought needed to be said, and I wanted to get out, like takes and angles that I haven't seen everyone take, specifically on these changes as well as this change that I just wanted to state. But I'm just going to review the whole thing top to bottom so that you guys can hear my opinion on everything when I think of everything. So starting out with just my opinions on the chart system in general, I think overall the win rate isn't the best. This is not the best reflection of which ops are the best ops, and I don't think that's what it's meant to be. It's what ranked really plat players, because most people plat and above. If you look at the charts that Ubi shows, like you see that vast majority of people are plat and above. Very much fewer people are diamond and champ. So it's mostly plats. PC plats. This is what PC plats like to play. This isn't necessarily the best ops. But, as we can see, the fragnade, denial. So, the meta is definitely heavily reliant on fragnades and fragnade denial. But, like I said, because of the fact that maybe it's a little more, plats are kind of known to be a little more run and gun than more tactical, which is why I think maybe Twitch it has a higher rate than she should, because she has the F2 and an ability that is very good for solo use, where you don't really rely on other abilities. For example, if you're using Thatcher to open up a wall, you need them to also open up, to help you, and then you need a bunch of people to try to do an execute from that breach. Whereas Twitch, you just drive your drone in and you shoot things, and then you get the F2. Which is why, in my opinion, I think we should be looking at this. This is the NIL attack defense. It shows both ban and pick rate to show which one's better, and as you see here, Twitch is only at 17% at a pro league level. Obviously, there are a lot of reasons for that, but in my opinion, because this isn't who's best, this is what plot players like to play. In my opinion, this is more who's best, so I'm going to try to speak as little as I can on this, but more like what Ubi takes from this than what I take from this, because I think, honestly, these rates are kind of not the most useful. Like, we shouldn't take as much from them as we do, and as Ubi clearly does, because Ubi takes these charts very heavily into the account when balancing. As Gregor said, they balance the game like a checklist, not a game. And I really agree with him on that. And I think these charts are a big issue for that, or the biggest cause for that issue. But anyways, moving on to the thing that I think the most people have talked about regarding these charts, because I still want to address it. Finka is insanely strong, and everyone is saying that they need to nerf LMGs in some way. And I'm going to be kind of quick on this because I just agree with that. Maybe make that you really slow and use them. You can't make the ADS time slower, really, because, ADS time's so slow on every gun, people might just ignore that time and use it anyways. But I will say that, yeah, going against Finka, LMG is pretty annoying, and I think it shouldn't be this strong. She's way too strong right now. Definitely need to tweak her in some way to make her a little weaker, but at the same time, I don't know what would replace her, because something's always going to be up here as long as they keep nerfing things, because they're going to nerf her to shit, right? I don't know when it's going to be. They might wait a few patches, but they're going to do what they did to Ashe, they're going to do what they did to Soph. Every single op that dominates the meta, they nerf them tremendously. So, you can see Ashe and Soph are still in a healthy place, but something's still replacing them way out here, and this time it's Finka. And in most people's opinions, including my own, Finka is way more annoying than either the Ashe or the Soph ever was. So, honestly, I think you hit Finka insanely hard. Who knows what comes next? Hey, maybe, just for example, maybe Nook comes next. You never hear where the enemy comes from again. That's even more annoying than the LMG. At least then you knew where they were coming. I'm not saying this will happen, by the way. I'm just saying, this is a potential place the meta could go, and Ubi needs to be very carefully when they're balancing on what they make to replace Finka, because you can't have a gap. There's no way you're going to have everyone in this area and no one outside of this area. There will always be something up here. So just make sure that thing is enjoyable to play, and I think that's how the game should work, rather than trying to make sure nothing will ever be up here. Because it won't be. One thing is always going to be better than another thing. It's going to be like, one thing wins 49% of the time, one thing wins 51% of the time, and then everyone will always go the one that wins 51% of the time. Because why would you lose that slight win percentage, It can't be balanced perfectly. And I think Ubi trying to balance perfectly is really hurting the game. But moving on from that, going on to the bans, we see, yeah, that's just banned 86% of the time. Yeah, it's quite the ban, right? A lot of people don't like playing against him because he gets rid of your utility, and that's just very annoying. Jackal, I think this one's because a lot of people miss drone in ranked or don't drone the best, so if you know the other team's not going to drone the best, then you can ban the Jackal so they can't kind of quote-unquote cheat while droning, and they can just like know an area is clear because they can look on their eye scanner and know, okay, no feet, this is clear, and then just push in without droning. Whereas you can play rat positions, or positions that wouldn't exactly expect you to do when you ban Jackal to punish them. So I understand why this is a common rank play, but I don't necessarily think Jackal's OP, nor should he be nerfed just because of this high ban, right? And I think the solution to Thatcher's high ban rate, as it is pretty obvious in my opinion, is some kind of Thatcher alternative. I know everyone else hates the secondary EMP gadgets, and I would, depending on how exactly they work. We haven't really seen too much of that, but I think they could work in a balanced fashion, whereas they would just make people stop banning Thatcher, because I don't think he should be cut out of the meta in this way. And obviously, Callie's not the solution on this, because both her ability and gun are kind of bad. But moving on to defense. Yeah, Mirror's annoying, Back's annoying, Cage can't get shits off the wall. Just all of this just makes logical sense to me. I don't really have anything to say about this. I don't know exactly why the no ban is so high for both of them. Both at 23%. I don't know why that is. But yeah, this in my opinion, this really shows like no ban is 4th for here and 3rd for here. That really shows that these charts aren't necessarily the most accurate, because obviously no ban is not a meta ban. Like, you should never ever be no banning. This should be at 0%. So I think that kind of works for that point, but I'm not 100% sure why this is so high. Anyways, on to operator balancing. So Bandit can deploy multiple gadgets per one reinforcement. Good change, definitely a good change. One thing I would say though is I don't know how many rounds this is going to affect, because this is most affecting bandit tricking, and the thing about bandit tricking is that this is only affecting bandit tricking against the Thatcher, because Thatcher disables the bandit. Now you don't have to shoot it, you can just put it back on. So obviously good that you can just put it back on, but you're only playing Thatcher in 14% of rounds, so this only really affects 14% of rounds, right? Unless there's some kind of way I'm missing, maybe to stop a vertical play where they have to shoot 2 bandit charges on a wall instead of 1, or nading, they have to nade 2 bandit charges, but I don't know how much this will be utilized. We'll see in the future. Blackbeard, I don't care. Okay, so Gridlock Nomad, I'm going to take these 2 changes as one, because they kind of are one, because these are the 2 flank watch ops. Okay, Oryx, I know, but he's really just there to keep the Nomad Oryx mechanic consistent, so just ignore that. No one actually Oryx, that's just into people. I mean, it's a gamer play. It's the Pro League gamer play, but in reality, no one does that. So, the Nomad nerf, Gridlock buff. Okay, so let's look at the chart. The chart says this is a good change. As you can see, Nomad is the premier flank watch, sitting at 25%, where Gridlock is sitting at like 2%, so that's kind of rough. And as we can see from this chart, which I actually prefer using for most things, where is Nomad is sitting at a 24% pick rate, so that's pretty good. And as we she didn't even make the chart. That's so rough for Gridlock. Yeah. So, in my opinion, this, like, it makes sense from that point of view. Like, Ubi, when 2 ops do the same thing, both of these ops are flank watch, so they do kind of like the same thing. Ubi likes to make them the same. But, in my opinion, Nomad and Gridlock, because of their design, will not be the same. And that is because the 2-speed versus the 3-speed rating. On attack especially, it's really difficult to go with a 1-speed, especially on your flank watch operator. The reason for that is, as said on the Pengu podcast, I'm giving credit to that for this point, because I think whoever said it, I'm so sorry, I forget exactly who, but watch the Pengu podcast. If you really want to know, it's a good podcast anyways. He said that the flank watch can often become the flanker, and that's a good point. Because, as we saw in my OXG TSM bot review on Theme Park, if you watch that, you don't have to watch that to understand the point. I just think it hammers that point home. You saw Laxing, and a lot of rounds, one round, it was a bunks defense from TSM. Laxing set up his flank nomads, and he set up all of his utility, and then he rotated all the way around the map and started pushing Cafe to be able to flank the TSM players playing inside bunks, and he actually won oxygen the round by doing that. Plays like that are possible with Nomad and not with Gridlock, and especially in the ranked mindset. Remember how I said it's a lot about gunning and stuff like that? Like, it's a lot about you know how players like to play. They play a very run and gun aggressive play style. So Gridlock is never going to fit that as a 1-speed, and she's a very limiting operator. So nerfing Nomad and her getting one more thing is fine, I guess. But I see honestly Gridlock going here and Nomad going. Maybe Nomad goes down a little, but I don't even know if Nomad's going to change. We'll see. I'll have to test it a bit more to see if Nomad's actually harmed that much by this change, but I don't think so. Okay, anyways, on to the most controversial change in a bit. So, a lot of people are really, really hating on this change. And I do not have a varsity gaming. This change is actually amazing, and all of passive abilities should be changed. The Aruni Punch Next, or I think that was roughly what the tweet said, but the very controversial tweet from Varsity Gaming. But yeah, I don't think he's right. If you want to see why that's about change, I recommend Krager's video. He makes some spectacular points in the video, but essentially to subsidize that video so you don't necessarily have to watch it, so I can just catch you up really quick so you can understand my personal take. This is a bad change because lore-wise it makes sense for Smoke, and lore isn't that a point important when considering odd balancing, but it might be a factor, and it's helpful that it makes sense. So he created the canisters, so logically he knows how to stop his own canisters, and then he has an entire apparatus on his back, as well as the fact that in game it was just a nice mechanic. You had to expend a smoke canister, which I don't know about how all levels personally in ranked, like especially lower elo ranked, I haven't found the canisters the most helpful because people can push with like a minute and a half left because like, you know, my teammates aren't stalling time properly. But at a comp level, if you can like stall time, like eating 30 seconds is insanely helpful. So having to use 10 seconds of your waste to cover yourself is a massive utility commitment. And 1 second here, I'm going to show Smoke. Yeah, we see pick rate 75%, and that's because his utility is so strong. So you're having to use that to cover yourself. It's a utility cost for a gain, and that was a good mechanic that a lot of people had, or that a lot of people liked. And no one was really hating on, no one was asking for this change. So for that reason, it is a bad change, and I agree with that take. But I have seen, I'm not referring to Gregor right now, I agree with Gregor's video, he makes some spectacular points. I have seen a lot of people say things like this. Now, I don't hate your boy Ray, I think he's a funny dude. But takes like this just are, in my opinion, very clearly clickbait takes, where he's just saying, like, this is not the worst change Ubi has made. This is not the worst change Ubi has made in recent memory. Remember when they buffed Alibi by giving her a 1.5 and to make her pick rate go up, and then her pick rate went up, and they gave her recoil? Remember when they lost Buck's nades, and because Buck and Sedge were too far apart, and now look how far Buck and Sedge are apart. They're even farther apart than when Buck had nades. Ubi's had a lot of tough balancing decisions. In my opinion, the M7 nerf I would add to that. In my opinion, like, all of the nerfs to making all of the movement in Siege very slow, I would add to that. So this is not a good change, but look, I have played Smoke a lot. Smoke is my main operator, and I have watched a lot of Pro League in Smoke. As you can see, he's picked in almost every single Pro League round, 3 out of 4 Pro League rounds, and I watch a lot of Pro League. And honestly, I've only seen it a play where you like smoke yourself and then you hide in the smoke work once. That was on console. It's a famous clip. Everyone's seen it. I'm sure you've seen it because it comes up so much in discussions like this. But someone was playing in CEO and he killed someone trying to defuse the bomb on piano on a consulate attack. Or sorry, he couldn't kill someone because of the smoke. Like, so the smoke player was defusing directly under the CEO hatch, and the guy had overview, but he just couldn't see through the smoke, and the smoke player won because of his canister, which was a nice play with nice utility committed to it, and wasn't really an unbalanced or broken mechanic. And I really like that, but that was one time. And it's really rare that thing happens. That clip was like very shared for a reason. It didn't happen. If that clip happened every game, no one would care. But that was a very rare clip. That doesn't happen often. It's a rare mechanic. Does that make it a good change? No. But the worst nerf ever? Really? It's not a good change, but like, I don't think it'll affect that many rounds. The vast majority of rounds with smoke would play out the exact same. His pick rate will not decline a single percentage in it shouldn't in ranked, although ranked players it might be a little overreactive, but it will not in Pro League. Okay, moving on. So Warden buff, Ying nerf. So I think the Warden buff, or sorry, I guess you could argue if this was a buff or a nerf, but in my opinion, it's a buff because really you just have it on, like you really want it on during the execute, so having 20 seconds there is really helpful, like as they're executing. But the cooldown, like in my opinion, you're only really using that like maybe to counter, if you're using it to counter Ying, you're only using it as they're actively flashing. But so I think it is a small buff to him, but I think he still will be a very situational operator. And I don't know why they're being so careful when they buff him, because look at where he is. Why not just make him have his glosses on longer? Why even bother with the cooldown change? He's a very situational op right now. He's only good on a few bomb sites, cafe top floor, or bottom floor. There are a few more, sure, but like it's not like he's being abused on every bomb site or anything, or like on those bomb sites is even that oppressive in any way, I would argue, to where I think this is way too careful of a change for Mubi. And I guess I like it, but I like that the fact that they're buffing Warden. I think it could be a little stronger of a buff, and I don't get why it's not. Moving on, Ying nerf. So Ubi would like to argue here that it's not a Ying nerf, but it is. And the reason I'm saying it's a Ying nerf is because even though she gets one more Candela, her time is split in half. And people use Candelas because they're so good at flashing someone in a particular area. In my opinion, it's not really the amount. And in a lot of takes you're using Ying, you don't really need to flash 4 places. It's usually you just want to flash like 2 or 3 places. But Ying is so good at that you just take her. For example, on Oregon, you go in E-box hatch with Ying and you flash close onto hatch so no one can hold your hatch drop, and you flash pillar. Sometimes you'll use your third on Shaiko, but after that you're essentially just like wasting the you just waste the 4th one. And also not the only time she would play, but I can't see that many situations where having a 4th would be more helpful than having them last significantly longer, because that allows longer time where you can push in and the defense being better flashed. I think this change is just being made, as you can see, it's for casual players. I'm not trying to like talk down to casual players, and I apologize if it sounds like I am, but casual players tend to find Ying more annoying, since casual players it's very annoying to get flash at any level, really. But that's the hardest for casual players who maybe aren't the best equipped to counter that, and maybe Ying is brought like against them more. So I see how that could be very annoying as like a casual player when you literally cannot see the guy that's shooting at you. Okay, one more change. This one would be really quick, I promise. Claymore change. So they increased the Claymore from 2 to 1. Good change, because Claymores are, in my opinion, the worst ability in attack. It will affect a few sites, but in general, the attacking meta won't shift much. People still, for the most part, on any op, maybe it'll switch off breaching charges on specific sites, but for the most part, the meta is still very utility reliant. That is not going to change with this. The Claymore is still the weakest ability on attack, in my opinion, and people are still going to bring throwables every single opportunity they can.